This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Welcome aboard Wild Weather in the Midwest. 17 tornadoes reported across 4 states the past 24 hours, 11 of them in the state of Illinois. NBC's Maggie Vespa's in hard-hit Streator, Illinois, about 80 miles south of Chicago.
This damage is absolutely breathtaking. Home after home left totally in pieces.
500,000 power outages in Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Michigan. So far this season, Illinois has had more than 100 confirmed tornadoes, and that's more than any other state. Elon Musk took SpaceX public today. It's launched the largest IPO ever. Here's ABC's Elizabeth Schulze.
In its IPO filing, SpaceX says its goals include establishing a permanent colony on Mars with 1 million people, launching AI data centers in space, mining asteroids. The company has never turned a profit and acknowledges that these goals might not be achievable. And some big name investors are skeptical, but other major banks and retail investors have been clamoring to own shares of SpaceX as a way to bet on Elon Musk.
The initial public offering will make Musk the world's first trillionaire. The rocket company selling stock for $135 a share. SpaceX is now valued at $1.7 trillion. Is the deal for real? President Trump says a memorandum of understanding to end the war with Iran could be signed as soon as this weekend.
Most importantly, we have a deal that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which was the whole purpose of what we had to go through to get this.
But NBC's Richard Engel says word of a breakthrough might be premature.
President Trump is giving the impression that this is a done deal, that all that remains is to sign on the dotted line. But Iran says nothing has been finalized.
Israel says it was not made aware of any deal and vows to continue the fight against Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Trump administration insists there's a deal and it involves reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Retired Air Force Brigadier General John Tiger.
The only way that I'm going to believe that they are in good faith negotiating and acting here is if once this deal takes effect, that they immediately open up the strait.
Former UN Ambassador Mark Wallace.
We've been in this movie before, and the president, he is dealing with a bit of an irrational actor. Clearly, Iran should make a deal. Are those irrational actors going to step up to the plate and actually do that deal?
Victoria Coates, national security analyst for the Heritage Foundation, has a more optimistic outlook.
It looks like this deal is coming together in a way that will get the strait open, will get to the resolution of the nuclear deal, and will do that before we give them sanctions relief.
Iranian exile Mesa Tehrani says no lasting peace is possible apart from regime change in Tehran.
The Iranian people, overwhelming majority of them, want the regime to be changed. They know that to get rid of this evil bully in the Middle East, you got to get rid of this regime.
Vice President J.D. Vance could travel to Europe this weekend for a signing ceremony. American troops in the Middle East were 3 hours away yesterday from dropping more bombs on Iran when President Trump called them off. The numbers 86, 47 have been etched in the grass near the Washington Monument. The threatening message was created from dead or discolored grass. Fox's Alexandria Haas.
The Department of Interior is calling this an act of deranged vandalism, with authorities not only trying to figure out who did this, but also what caused the discoloration in the grass.
Former FBI Director James Comey made a similar threat in the form of seashells on a North Carolina seashore. He's now facing formal charges because of that. Today marks 10 years since the Pulse nightclub massacre. Fox's Tanya J. Powers.
A decade has passed since 49 people were killed when a gunman opened fire inside the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. At the time of the massacre in 2016, it was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
The gunman, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, was killed in a shootout with police after a 3-hour standoff. 911 calls indicate he'd pledged allegiance to ISIS. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, expires today. Congress tried to pass a temporary extension yesterday but failed. FISA has been the law of the land in these United States since 2008. It grants the government the power to spy on foreign nationals as part of terrorism investigations without a judicial warrant. The U.S. Supreme Court says the state of Alabama cannot carry out executions using nitrogen gas. That ruling prevented the state from putting to death a condemned killer last night. Alabama does have other methods of capital punishment, including lethal injections and electrocutions. 'Tis the season for pomp and circumstance and a whole lot of stress for students. Bree Tennis explains.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 61% of high school graduates will advance to college with a big old bag of stress. Psychology Today says that struggle is real, with a high percentage of first-year students reporting the most stress, anxiety, and depression. They say it's a combination of things: picking a major, navigating classes, social dynamics, and the cost. I'm Bree Tennis.
Yeah, the cost, a big one. Thank you, Bree. Team USA begins play against Paraguay as World Cup competition kicks off in Los Angeles tonight. The tournament got underway yesterday with 2 matches in Mexico. Prices to attend this year's games are the highest ever. General admission is $120. If you want to get into the finale July 19th at MetLife Stadium, that'll set you back $30,000. Seth Yon with the United States Soccer Federation is not happy about that.
FIFA, who drives those prices and how high they are, I think they're a little bit detached from what this sport was intended to reach and the audience that they were intended to reach and who they're intended to inspire, and sold out for the almighty dollar.
Nearly 50 countries are represented at this year's World Cup. North America is hosting the tournament for the first time since 1994. Still to come on the Noon Report, a Friday edition. Lawsuit over assisted suicide. Pot rules in Pennsylvania. And race weekend in the Poconos.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The weekend is upon us. Saturday is a beauty. Sunday, not so much. We'll have forecast details in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Thank you. Let's check the stories making news where you live, all across New York and Pennsylvania. Early voting starts tomorrow for New York's primary election. The state attorney general has set up an election protection hotline. You can call it if you have any problems. A representative will be available to help troubleshoot issues which could arise whether voting in person or using an absentee ballot. Primary day itself is Tuesday, June 23rd. An effort to move the needle on recreational marijuana has failed in Pennsylvania. Republican Dan Laughlin's bill that would have created a cannabis control board was shot down this week in the state Senate.
To say I'm a little disappointed today in the vote taking place in the Senate on Senate Bill 49 would be an understatement.
With the failure of his legislation, Laughlin fears intoxicating hemp products will continue to be available to young children across the Commonwealth.
I think it's pretty clear that politics means more than children's safety. We are now going to continue to sell intoxicating hemp products within the state of Pennsylvania, many times to underage children.
7 Democrats who initially supported Laughlin's bill did an about-face and opposed it. The Pennsylvania Family Institute opposes any effort to legalize adult-use cannabis in the Commonwealth. Important to point out here, Laughlin's bill was not about legalization, only regulation. New York's controversial doctor-assisted suicide law takes effect this summer, but already a lawsuit has been filed to stop it. Disability rights groups argue the Medical Aid in Dying Act pushes the vulnerable towards suicide instead of providing them with medical care. Starting August 5th, mentally capable, terminally ill adults with under 6 months to live can request life-ending medications. Plaintiffs in this case argue the law violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. Pennsylvania politicians are trying to balance the books on the backs of big tech. With a budget deadline looming, they're looking at a couple of options which would impose new taxes on the tech industry. More on that from Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
The two options are eliminating the state's sales tax exemption for data centers and extending the 5% gross receipts tax to firms that sell digital ads. Supporters argue the revenue would come from tech companies rather than small businesses and everyday Pennsylvanians. The Commonwealth is on track to spend around $5 $5 billion more than it makes for this fiscal year, and Governor Shapiro's more than $53 billion budget proposal would dip deeper into the state's rainy day fund. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
An Army soldier from West Seneca, New York, has died in a training exercise in California. Adrian Bonzi was struck by a military vehicle at Fort Irwin. He attended Amherst High School. Bonzi was deployed to Poland a few years ago and earned 2 Army Achievement Medals. Adrian Bonzi was just 29 years old. Let's talk power next, or the lack thereof. New York State has failed RG&E and NYSEG on reliability testing, and that's going to cost those 2 utilities millions of dollars. Nikki Rudd with News 10 in Rochester has more.
The State Department of Public Service says RG&E and NYSEG had significant issues with power outages in 2025, measured in what it calls the frequency threshold. Last year, RG&E failed to meet its frequency threshold, and NYSEG missed those benchmarks for the 7th year in a row. The state is now forcing RG&E to miss out on $5 million in revenue. And NYSEG is set to lose $3.5 million.
That's Nikki Rudd with News 10 in Rochester. Investigators believe a house explosion in Wayne County, Pennsylvania, was caused by a propane cylinder failure. Residents reported seeing propane tanks on fire after fleeing that home in Clinton Township Thursday morning. 3 houses were destroyed in the blast. Several others were damaged. 3 people were taken to the hospital. A Lancaster, New York mom says her 11-year-old son had a frightening encounter with a stranger this week and hopes this ordeal will encourage others to be vigilant. It happened Tuesday afternoon when Eli Marble was biking to a friend's house. That's when a black SUV approached him and began following closely beside him.
He proceeded to go even slower, so Eli, my son, sort of slowed down and looked towards the window, and the man rolled down his window and mentioned that he had dogs in the car, wanted to know if my son was interested in seeing the puppies.
Martha Marble, Eli's mother, tells WIVB.
The man followed him and turned around about 3 or 4 times to continue following him until he finally made it away.
The child was unharmed and his mom is thankful.
Something that we take for granted is just feeling safe in our neighborhood. It's not something that we're promised every day.
Martha Marble contacted Lancaster police after the incident and shared her harrowing ordeal on social media.
It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how old your child is. It doesn't matter anything. They need to be aware of their surroundings, and we need to be aware of our surroundings.
Lancaster police say the driver had dark curly hair, was wearing a COVID mask, and had a hoodie over his head. No arrest has been made yet. A new poll shows 1 in 3 Americans are not checking their checking account because of financial anxiety. The U.S. Bank survey finds younger adults report the sharpest money stress, with nearly half of all Gen Zers avoiding checking their banking account at all. The poll shows a quarter of U.S. adults feel they need $10,000 at least in savings to avoid financial stress. The Buffalo Zoo has welcomed 5 new lemurs. More on that from Family Life's Dee Haley.
Buffalo Zoo officials announced yesterday they have acquired a family of black and white ruffed lemurs from North Dakota as part of a species survival plan recommendation from the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Native only to Madagascar, black and white ruffed lemurs are considered critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Officials estimate their population has been cut down by as much as 80% over the past 3 decades. Logging, slash and burn agriculture, development, and illegal hunting have all played a role in their decline. According to zoo officials, protecting habitats is critical to ensure the survival of all lemurs. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you, Dee. The NASCAR Cup Series rolls into the Pocono Raceway this Sunday. Drivers will duke it out in the Great American 400, presented by Visit PA. Denny Hamlin's looking for his 3rd straight victory after earning wins at Michigan and Nashville. Elsewhere in sports, the Carolina Hurricanes are a win away from their first Stanley Cup title since 2006. They doubled up the Vegas Golden Knights last night, 4-2 in Game 5 from Raleigh. Game 6 is to Sunday in Vegas. The New York Knicks can capture their first NBA title in 53 years with a win tomorrow night against San Antonio. The Knicks scored the largest comeback in finals history 2 nights ago at the Garden and have taken a 3-1 series lead. The Men's College World Series starts today in Omaha. The double elimination tournament begins with West Virginia taking on Troy, followed by a matchup between North Carolina and Ole Miss. And as mentioned earlier, Team USA begins competition today in the World Cup. They take on Paraguay in Los Angeles. Kickoff set for 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fox. And still to come on the Noon Report, best states for working dads, heat relief this weekend, and Christian response to Gay Pride Month.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. In light of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, much ink is being spilled over the document's significance. For example, John West, vice president of the Discovery Institute, is suggesting in his new book, which is titled Endowed by Our Creator, the Bible, Science, and the Battle for America's Soul, that one way we should understand the Declaration is through the lens of science. West argues that the Founding Fathers largely believed in a coherence between the teachings of the Bible and the discoveries of science, with science affirming an intelligent design of the created order. The language of the Declaration, of course, clearly exhibits this. In declaring that all men are created equal, the founders were articulating a view of humanity, that they were created by God and endowed by Him with certain rights. John Adams, who assisted in drafting the Declaration of Independence, once explained what he thought it meant to be equal. Quote, "We are all of the same species, made by the same God, possessed of minds and bodies alike in essence." End quote. As West explained, the leading founders understood science as recognizing and affirming the truths of the Bible, not challenging or controverting them. Operating from a worldview that was undergirded by the truths of Christianity, the founders understood that because humans were created equal, they were distinct from animals. Humans, unlike animals, were created by God with natural rights, with reason and the ability to speak. And yet, unlike God, humans are fallible and prone to selfishness. As James Madison famously put it in the Federalist Papers, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. This truth about the human condition also cuts against the validity of slavery. When the Declaration's principal author, Thomas Jefferson, wrote on this point, he emphasized science. Quote, "The general spread of the light of science has already laid open to every view the palpable truth, that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride them legitimately by the grace of God." Of course, slaveholders and apologists for slavery also appealed to science at times to justify their evil. Just weeks after the election of Abraham Lincoln and the formation of the Confederacy, the vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, made one of the most astonishing speeches in American history. He acknowledged that the American founders viewed slavery as evil and believed that it would eventually pass away, but he then explained that the Confederacy was founded on exactly the opposite idea, that there was a difference between the races, and that the Confederates were the first and most advanced nation in the history of the world because they acknowledged that supposed scientific truth. Fortunately for America and for the world, Abraham Lincoln exhibited more clear-headed statesmanship during the Civil War. He articulated that America's founders did not mean to assert the obvious untruth that all were then actually enjoying the equality proclaimed by the Declaration, but instead, and I quote, "they meant simply to declare the right so that the enforcement of it might follow as fast as circumstances should permit. They meant to set up a standard maxim for free society, which should be familiar to all and revered by all, constantly looked to, constantly labored for, and even though never perfectly attained, constantly approximated, and therefore constantly spreading and deepening its influence, augmenting the happiness and value of life to all people of all colors everywhere." End quote. Thankfully, we have the Declaration to celebrate, and its central claim that our rights come from God who made us in His image. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thanks, John. Let's head outside. It's weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast for this afternoon. Mixed conditions. Watch for a few strong thunderstorms across parts of central New York, central and eastern Pennsylvania. Farther west, it'll turn out mostly sunny in western New York and northwest Pennsylvania. There, the humidity will lower thanks to a freshly breeze from the west. Temperatures peaking mostly in the 80s, then dropping tonight into the 50s with starry skies. Tomorrow, it's a beauty, much less humid, bright and sunny, low 80s. Sunny clouding up with showers arriving by the afternoon and thunder as well. High temps in the lower 80s.
All right, Kevin, thank you kindly. It's Friday, folks, the 12th of June, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Jason McGuire with New York Families and Michael Gear at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Well, Michael, I want to begin with you this week. A tough topic, but a necessary one because we're all living it. June is so-called Gay Pride Month. We see the flags everywhere. We see the rainbow, the symbol from God, being hijacked and used for a purpose that Bible-believing Christians say has no reason being used that way. But here we are. So how do you recommend Christians respond to Gay Pride Month?
Well, I guess to use an oft-quoted phrase from Ephesians 4:15, we need to respond by speaking the truth in love. God's unchanging word is clear about the nature of sexual sin, and we must not abandon that truth in how we live, what we say, and how we engage with others. So we cannot submit to or embrace this idea of Pride Month and follow the path of least resistance just to get along with the crowd. The truth is too important. But we also must remember to treat every human being with respect, understanding that we all sin and fall short of the glory of God, and we're all created in the image and likeness of God. So it's a balance of unwavering truth and God-honoring love.
Jason, I'll kind of ask you the same question. What advice would you give people who struggle with the bombardment of gay pride in your face all month long? What's the Christian response to this?
Well, one, I think people can be encouraged. There was recent Gallup polling that shows that there has been a decrease in support for same-sex marriage. It's really at its lowest point since 2016. We are also seeing that many corporations are pulling back from supporting this so-called Pride Month. The general population is just not as supportive as it once was. But I don't want to think of it as an us versus them mentality. I think one of the things we can do as believers, and it's important that we do, is that we offer positive alternatives. We should be celebrating marriage. We see, for example, that Dr. Robert George has been promoting Fidelity Month, and it's a great opportunity. You'll see people on Facebook and other social media posting a picture from their wedding day, and just a simple statement celebrating marriage between a man and a woman. It's not an offensive thing. It doesn't have to attack what is going on the other side. It just lifts up and exalts what marriage really is as God intended it to be. And I think we as a culture need to be celebrating that more.
Yeah. As Jason alluded to, Michael, Gallup has U.S. support for gay marriage at 65%, still a majority, but that's down to its lowest level in over a decade. Is it getting more difficult, you think, for church and government leaders to take a stand for God's design for marriage and family? And if so, how come?
It's been hard for some time now. 20 years ago, Pennsylvania's U.S. Senator Rick Santorum was boldly outspoken in support of marriage between one man and one woman. And then he suffered significant criticism as the LGBT movement looked to make him an example. And that ended up scaring, I think, many other politicians from just simply staying away from the issue, and even some pastors as well. The hope is, and even seeing with these changes in the polls, that people awaken to the troubles that come with these decisions and head in the opposite direction.
Gay marriage, Jason, nationwide has been legal for more than a decade. Hard to believe. I think it was the Obergefell v. Hodges decision, if I'm correct. For 10 years now, over 10 years, this has been the law of the land in all 50 states. I wonder if you could, for our audience, just explain what the net effect of this Supreme Court decision has been the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think that Obergefell decision really has impacted how people view parenthood in particular. And I think think that's something we have to remember, is that there are children that are being harmed in these relationships. And so we're seeing that, for example, in the legislature this week here in New York. Senator Luis Sepulveda is seeking to take the word mother and father out of paternity legislation and simply using the term gestating parent. Here we are really sandwiched between Mother's Day and Father's Day quickly approaching here. And in the middle of it, we are seeking legislative efforts here in our state to remove the very notion of moms and dads. That's not a child's best interest.
Well, hey, let's turn our attention to something we can all celebrate, no matter what political stripes you wear, and that is America's 250th birthday this year. I don't know if you guys heard or not. It's been mentioned a time or two. 250 years as a democratic republic this 4th of July. Michael, I'll start with you. Explain, if you would, what's the secret sauce here to our staying power as a nation?
Well, Jason and I both had the opportunity to attend on May 17th and rededicate 250, a national jubilee of prayer, praise, and thanksgiving. And I think if we look to America's founding, it was based on these biblical principles and understanding that we need to turn to God through our history. When Abraham Lincoln in his Thanksgiving proclamations was talking about both the terrible devastation that was going on in the country with the Civil War, but encouraging the country to turn to God, I think that is, if you want to talk about a secret sauce, it's that God's hand has been on this country, and that to the extent that we turn to Him and dedicate ourselves to Him, God will continue to give us the freedom that we have been blessed with over these 250 years.
Well, I admit, Jason, I'm a history buff. I've been watching the HBO drama John Adams. It just struck me at how tedious our country was at the beginning. It could have collapsed right away, but it didn't. When you think of America at 250, what strikes you as significant or unique to our form of government?
It's the very notion of liberty. Sometimes we think of liberty as meaning you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. It's really not what it is. It's really walking within the principles of what God's Word teaches, and that's where the greatest freedom is. And I think many of our founding fathers understood that, and the American people understood that as they walked in obedience to God's Word, they would see the blessings of obedience in their lives and on the nation. And when they walked outside of the ways of God's Word, there would be a curse of disobedience. But I think there's also a greater principle that applies to every nation and to every people, that if they seek after God, we can expect certain blessings of obedience, and if we don't, the curses of disobedience.
Yeah.
And so it's a great opportunity for us at this 250 to look ahead to the next 250 and to say, hey, if we want to be a people that are blessed and see God's favor, then we have to be a people that will seek after Him.
Yeah. And Michael, you heard Jason talk about the next 250. I've heard a lot of commentators talk about, should the Lord tarry, will we make it to 500 as a nation? It seems a long way off, but we already talked about some of the things undermining the family. We see just the political strife in our nation right now. Can we survive as a country another 250 years?
Well, as I look coming from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where I'm speaking to you from now, we think about the history that came out of Philadelphia. There's a movie that was just out this spring that's now available on live streaming and DVD called A Great Awakening that talks about America's history. And I think when you look at that, it looks at the relationship between Ben Franklin, one of our founders, and George Whitefield, an evangelist who helped spark the Great Awakening here in America. I think if we are to last another 250 years, it's going to be another Great Awakening that we need to have in our country, turning our hearts back to God and to realize that, as Jason talked about, our liberties are a gift from God. Ben Franklin recognized that through his friendship with George Whitefield and encouraging in the Constitutional Convention when they were at a crisis point to say, we need to turn to God. That's what the country did, and we need to do that going forward.
Well said, Michael, and that is a great film. Highly recommend folks watch it. And then, Jason, we'll end with you. Historically speaking, every 250 years or so, a civilization will undergo a dramatic reset. These are the moments where governments rise and fall. We saw it with the Roman Empire. We saw it with other great civilizations throughout antiquity. What do you think will determine the longevity of these United States of America?
We've alluded to it already, but it's going to be the favor of God, whether or not we're walking in obedience to Him or not. We are undergoing as a people some tremendous revolutions. We think of what has been happening throughout history, and we saw the industrial age, different things that have hit our shores. And, Senator Ben Sasse has been talking about the revolutions going on now regarding AI and how we approach that. It will likely determine what America will look like in those next 250 years. At its core, What a time to be alive. This is an opportunity for believers now in all 50 states to humble themselves and to really cry out to God for our nation. It is not common that nations like ours can survive that long. This has been the hand of God on our nation, and what a time to pray and intercede and to be here that we might have liberty for our generation and future generations. This is an amazing opportunity to really take a stand as a believer.
I love it. What a time to be alive. Just quoted Jason McGuire there. Hey, this is our last show of the summer. We'll be back in the fall, Lord willing. But if you want to learn more about Jason and Michael's organizations, the great work they're doing throughout the summer months, they don't take the summers off, although we will be. Jason, where can people learn more about New York Families?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
And the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Lots going on this summer. Michael, where can folks find you?
PAFamily.org.
Love having those guys on Fridays. They'll be back in the fall, Lord willing. All our Capital Connection podcasts, by the way, are available online anytime. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org. And finally, at noon for a Friday, New York and Pennsylvania are apparently above average when it comes to best states for working dads. In advance of Father's Day next Sunday, Wallet Hub has put out a list. New York's number 14, Pennsylvania, came in 16th this year. Wallet Hub spokesman Chip Lupo tells Family Life what makes a state dad-friendly.
What we looked at, Bob, was 4 key dimensions: economic and social well-being, work-life balance, which is crucial, child care, hot topic these days, and overall health.
I was shocked to see that almost 1 in 5 stay-at-home parents are dads. What are the main reasons, Chip, that dads are choosing to work from home?
Well, in a lot of cases, dads work types of jobs that can easily be transitioned to home. A lot of jobs where you can stay at home and do your Zoom calls and at the same time be there for the cable man, be there when the children come over to school and that kind of thing.
Folks want more information, Chip, about this study. Where can they find you online?
Just log on to wallethub.com.
All right. Thank you, Chip. Chip Lupo at Wallet Hub, doing a great job making lists, all kinds of lists they do. And on this list, Massachusetts came in number 1 as the best state for working dads. New Mexico was last. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, the 12th of June. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.